Hello there and welcome back to another review. So today we're going to be having a look at the very, I would say somewhat controversial movie that is All Monsters Attack, and it's a real odd commodity, this film. Lots to discuss, lots to go into. Made back in 1969, directed by Ishiro Honda. The 10th film in the Godzilla saga, and unfortunately this movie is often considered to be one of the worst. It's generally sort of not high on a lot of people's list. A lot of people are not fans of this movie. And the question I'm sort of asking myself and asking you today, is it really that bad? Is this film really as bad as some people make it out to be? Don't get me wrong, it's definitely not one of the better ones, but is it really that bad? I mean, we know that Honda himself even cited this as one of his favourites that he directed. The film comes in at just around 70 minutes, this film. So it's not even that, if you could even call that a film, clocking in at 70 minutes. Can a film this short really be called sort of one of the worst? One of the main criticisms people have with this movie, I've speaking to other people, reviews I've read, a lot of the criticism seems to fall on the fact that it does rely on the overuse of stock footage from previous movies, from scenes from previous movies, and that is a fair criticism of the film. Now, where the film is only 70 minutes in length, and in that 70 minutes you're getting scenes and footage from previous movies, you can't help with All Monsters Attack feel a tiny little bit cheated with what sort of the way sort of they like what happens in the movie with what you see. So we get, like I say, footage from some of the movies that have gone before, from like Ibira Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, etc. And it's worth noting that Honda himself, during the production, he was directing the special effects scenes as well as the drama scenes due to the budget, time and constraints. And I believe Suburia's health, who would normally direct the special effects scenes, was not in the best at the time. And to make the movie as well, it was done on a very small studio. Now, usually they would direct a film like this, they would have two studios. They would have like one for like sort of dramatic set pieces, like with the actors and things like that. Then they would have another studio for sort of, sort of the action scenes, the miniatures, that kind of thing. But this film was pretty much all in one studio, just like I say, with sort of Honda doing everything. Now, I don't think the film fails on the premise, and because it is a character-driven piece. That is what is interesting about this movie. It is very much a character-driven thing. I think for that, it exceeds. And our young boy here, Ishiro, is an entertaining character. It's just, unfortunately, with the use of stock footage, as I mentioned, that to many people you could say, you can't help feel it was just a bit lazy. Like I say, in terms of length, reuse of stock footage, that kind of thing. That, from the lazy film in terms of, like I said, the monster side of things, but in terms of a character-driven narrative, it works really well. And, hats off to Honda for being bold and, crazy enough to just give something like this a go, to try something new, not doing aliens, not doing, okay, Godzilla invades Japan, that kind of thing, but trying to mix things up a bit. Where this film is so short, our lead is a young boy who does actually carry the piece from start to finish. There is actually a sweet nature and charm to the movie, and it's definitely, Godzilla, for the most part, the movies are for children, but no more so than All Monsters Attack, which, really is like a children's short story. And so I'd say that they've got the message here of fighting your own battles and growing up and being independent and not letting others push you around. All things that I say they sort of try and teach sort of young kids. I think the movie was made in sort of retaliation to the Gamera movies that were happening and were very much like a children's, like I say, monster movies. And I believe this was sort of Toho's answers to that. What is also interesting is that the monsters in this movie are not real. Godzilla he is actually not real in the movie, because Ichiro, the young boy, he's like us. He just knows Godzilla from the movies. He knows Godzilla from like what he's seen on screen. He just knows, that's how he knows Godzilla, and like he dreams of going to Monster Island. Obviously made on a very, very small budget, explaining, like I say, things like I said, just using one studio, why the film is so short in length, why there's an overabundance on stock footage and what's come before, all come back down to that little thing, money and budget and time. The film offers a rounded character arc, but is it perfect? Of course it's not. It's far, far, far from perfect. And this is, let's say, this film, in terms of the movies that are in the, like, talking of the Criterion box set, the Showa era box set, this one sticks out, largely for not so great reasons, but this one does stick out like a sore thumb, because it's one of the do you know when sometimes if a film is bad or there's not, for whatever reason, you remember it more sometimes when a film it doesn't sort of live up to sort of what you expected. But as I say, considering the budget was minuscule compared to previous entries in the series, the film could have been a lot worse. And like I say, for 70 minutes of entertainment, it really isn't that bad. At least personally, I don't think it is. So we actually get a theme song that is sung at the start of the movie, going on to sing about smog and the pollution, saying these like smog and the pollution are like the real monsters that we're fighting. A theme that would stay or be referenced to in like a few Godzilla movies. We meet this young boy, Ichiro, and his friend Sachiko, and his dad is a train driver and he wants his son to be more assertive. With both of his parents working a lot of the time, Ichiro has to like look after himself and he daydreams a lot. And whilst this is going on, the police are after these two men who did like a 50 million yen heist. So Ichiro comes home and he has like his toy maker friend Shinpei, who sort of like looks after him when his parents are out. And we learn this young boy dreams of going, as I mentioned, to Monster Island. Like, as I say, he just knows from the films he wants to go to Monster Island. That's what he'd love to do. So the notion and premise of the film is that, like I say, he daydreams. He daydreams a lot. And he goes into like this fantasy world in his head, which when watching it again recently, it just reminds me of, in a way, a bit like Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch, sort of that idea of going into the character's head, seeing these fantasies, like these safe places, these dreams that the main lead had, like to sort of distance themselves from like the reality of what is going on. Obviously there's no lobotomy or anything in this movie, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. If you have seen Sucker Punch, that sort of analogy, that's sort of what's going on here. But so I love when we have like the first dream, we see him on like a first class flight and he's sitting in the front row with all these grown-ups and they're all going to Monster Island, like it's sort of all in one sort of inclusive holiday, which I thought was quite funny, and he's just sitting in the front row. I thought that was quite amusing. So as mentioned, the film makes a lot of use of stock footage, right? And we get stuff from, and what is unfortunate is it's one thing doing that, but what they do is we get footage from Son of Godzilla right away, like literally right away, and that wasn't many movies ago. That wasn't, so it's like if you'd been seeing these movies up to this point, or you were keeping up to speed with the Godzilla franchise, it's like, didn't I see that a couple of movies ago? Didn't I see that shot a couple of movies ago? It's almost like a compilation as such in a way, this movie. So he's imagining he is on Monster Island. He falls down a hole and gets pulled up by Manila, who can actually speak now, by the way. Like, Manila can actually talk, which is another thing that you do raise your eyebrow at. But where I mentioned, like, where the Godzilla films are for children, give or take, I think they're pretty much aimed at young kids, aren't they? But this one in particular is very much sort of a kid's movie. So he's imagining he's there. So falls down a hole, gets pulled up. So when these two first start speaking, you're just like, what is going on? Because when Manila starts, it's like, is this really happening? Like, is this really the route they're going down with this movie? So after waking up, we learn his mum is going to be late, and his toy maker friend invites him sort of to have dinner with him, because he's sort of always doing like the parents' job, even though the parents are never there. So he goes to play in this like abandoned factory, as most kids do, I'm sure. It's his imagination that entertains him the most of the time, and so it's where the film, this is where the film hopefully succeeds with some people, because we all remember what it's like to be young and dream. And I think when you look at this film from that idea and what this film's trying to do, we were all young once. We all had dreams. We all had sort of fantasies. Even now people daydream. What if this? Wouldn't it be great if this, and that kind of thing? And that's where, say, the film does succeed, because it does really channel into that, because we've all sort of been there. That idea of just imagining and things like that. So in this factory is where the two robbers are hiding, go figure. Ichiro, without realising what it is, picks up one of their wallets with his ID on him. One of the crooks follows him when he leaves the factory, and I have to love how the police come by the apartment and they say to Shinpei, your car outside might get stolen by two people on the run. What about every other car that's in Japan? Why have you specially and specifically come round just to warn Shinpei about his car? Like, why is he getting special treatment? Why would two of you go out of your way to randomly warn this small-time toy maker about his car? it's just, by the way, we're both up here, just to let you know. I know it's really urgent, but your car might get stolen. What about everybody else? So as I say, they're just, unless, I don't know, they did go around to every house, but I don't know. So Ichiro starts to daydream about Monster Island again, is approached by Gabara, who's like the monster version of a lot of this kid that is bullying him in real life. Then we watch Godzilla fight Ibara again, then Kumonga again. All the while we have some very 60s music going on, and Ichiro and Manila dancing together when Godzilla wins. And like I say, the stock footage does really get ridiculous at this point, because you're basically just watching some of the recent fights from the recent movies just again. Then Manila grows in size, and for some reason we have the crotch area get bigger right in front of the audience's face as he goes to take on Gabara and gets beaten senseless. The whole idea that Ichiro and Manila are similar and facing the same problems, having to grow up and face responsibilities. I mean, I don't want to get too deep about this movie, but it's one of them films that, if you look at it in a certain way, there's a lot of themes here that are running through this. Like, it's because basically the whole idea is Manila's meant to be two of the same, him and Manila, and they're sort of facing the same problems. If you remember in Son of Godzilla, like Manila didn't have a lot of luck, and in this movie, sort of Ichiro sort of associates with Manila, and that's sort of what happens. So he has headphones on too, for no reason, I guess to symbolise he got headphones on, I guess to sort of symbolise he's sort of blocked off the outside world at this point and can't be woken up. Then we have some fighter jets attacking Godzilla, and they peek the scene of Godzilla trying to teach Manila the atomic breath by stepping on his tail. So our young lead then wakes up and is being grabbed by the robbers. Not sure why they had to wake him up. They only because he took his wallet, right? They only wanted his ID back. That's the only thing they wanted. So why they had to wake him up, I have no idea. Couldn't they have just snuck in and got it and snuck out again? So they take the poor kid to the factory where he was earlier. He then goes back to the safe place in his head to watch Manila get knocked the crap out of by Gabara. Godzilla turns up and his son doesn't want to fight, and Godzilla does what all fathers do when their son is having a tough time and just kicks him. So yeah, Ichiro gets Manila to step on this trunk, which sends Gabara flying, which would imply Manila is sort of heavier, though when you look at these two monsters, I really doubt it. When you can their size comparison, when Manila jumps down, there's no way that would happen. There's no way. After congratulating his son, Gabara comes to and starts attacking Godzilla. Godzilla wins, and then Ichiro wakes back up in the factory. So, I mean, they really have no reason to take the kid. He wakes up in the factory with these two robbers, and they have no reason to take the kid. Even at one point, one even says, "Why are you taking the kid? Are you taking the kid?" I guess the whole idea is they can use him for blackmail or ransom or something like that. They're just two robbers on the run. All they want is their ID back. Now they're taking Ichiro along with them. So whilst trying to make a getaway, Ichiro escapes, and like I say, the whole idea is that it mirrors what Manila is going through. Growing up, becoming a man, fighting your own battles. I mean, they chase him down. Why not just make a break for it without the kid? Like, they purposely go out their way to get this kid. Why all of a sudden must you have this child with you? Shinpei on his way home finds his abandoned car with the robber's money inside it. Credit to him, he phones the police right away and doesn't pocket even just a few notes for himself, which, let's be honest, we would all be tempted to if we found loads of money just sitting there. The ending of the film, when you think of a young kid and two robbers, two burglars, you can't help but think of Home Alone, and this film does sort of go into that territory. With this young boy trying to outwit these bumbling crooks. We have trips, falls, fire extinguishers, you name it. You can't help but think of Home Alone. The whole idea being these are I think the notion is like these crooks, these robbers, they're sort of the monsters in real life, right? Because he has his fantasy Monster Island space, and like here, what he's facing here is a challenge to sort of be assertive, to take down these foes, to take down the villains, and I think that's sort of what is going on here. So the whole idea, but they're the real life monsters, and we all face monsters every single day, something like that. I love how even though one gets arrested, the other guy who was inside decides to walk out the front way exactly to where the cops are. Like, could have easily gone out the back, but just decides to walk out the front as well to join the other guy who's been arrested. Ichiro's mum promises she will never work nights again, and he has loads of reporters waiting for him in the morning. His neighbour explains to them that Manira is like a god to him, and why can't children have gods too? Ends with him sort of beating up his childhood bully Gabba and startling this painter with his motorbike horn. Who, to our knowledge, this guy who's like this doing this painting, he's been doing that since the start of the movie. Like the start of the movie, it's like this very same weather, it's the same day. He's got the ladder in the same place, so he's been painting this thing a hell of a long time. So ends with all the kids being friends and sort of running off together, basically. But it's very short. It's very, very short. It's, as I say, 70 minutes a lot in length. No end monster battle. No end big showdown. No end destruction or anything like that. It's a very short, sweet, to the point film. I mean, it is a Godzilla movie with like the idea, not the focus being on Godzilla. To call this a Godzilla movie is, I mean, I know it is a Godzilla movie, but I wouldn't call it a Godzilla. I would call it sort of an experimental Godzilla movie. I know the film has taken quite a lot of flack over the years, but please, if you've never seen it and you're interested in like the original Godzillas, don't let the reviews, if you have read reviews of this or what people say of this film, don't let that put you off, because what I think is a very sweet, charming little character-driven like children's kaiju movie that, aside from the reuse of stock footage, is nowhere near as bad as some might have you think. And as a Godzilla movie, it's not great, but as a kids movie that just uses Godzilla as a plot thread, it works. And not only that, I think it works really well. But as I say, just unfortunate the runtime, the stock footage, some of the budget constraints does let the film down a little bit. But as I say, it's worth remembering that Honda himself did cite this as one of his personal favourites. So check it out. Let me know in the comments below what you think of All Monsters Attack. Is it really that bad? If you've seen it, is it one of your favourites? Do you like it? Do you think it deserves all the flack that it's got? And just be sure to let me know. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.